Look, let me just start this off by letting you in on sort of my journey very quickly that got me here and we can go from there. I guess when I was in year 12, or before I went into university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I asked myself a few key questions, which I'd probably encourage you to ask yourself today. The first one was, what do I like? I was in year 12, so the obvious answer was girls. But you know, I couldn't really make a career out of that one, you know. Well, not a legal one, anyways. So I said, well, what else do I like? You know, what are my skills? What are my talents? And, you know, I came to the crushing realization very early on that, wow, I don't think I have many skills or many employable skills very early on. So I went to my dad, who is an academic at the university, and he gave me some valuable advice. I said, look, I think I may want to do dentistry. You know, a lot of people in my year were talking about dentistry, and I was like, I think I may want to do this. And he said, cool, that sounds great, but before you actually go into that, how about you do some work experience? And it was the best advice I ever got, because I went in to do dentistry, and I did a few weeks internship at a company, and it was the worst few weeks of my life. It was terrible. It was like everyone was depressed and sad, and I was like, if you want to do dentistry, by the way, go for it. But personally, I was like, well, a key core of my belief was I wanted to be happy doing what I was doing, and I didn't think I could do that in that role. So internship opportunities, work experience was extremely valuable to me. And so hopefully I encourage you to exercise that. The second message that I want to stress on is this idea of networking. I met a businesswoman at an event, and when I was speaking to her, I like to ask people, you know, how are you in the job that you're in? And she was the COO of the company, and I said, how are you in the job that you're in? Because I'm interested to know that whole journey, that process, because by understanding that journey, you could sort of shape your own journey and understand which steps and which directions to take. And she let me in on a little secret, and she said, you know, in 10 years of business, not once did she apply for a job. I said, what? 10 years? How did you get to where you are now and you didn't apply for a job? She said, it was simple. Every time she needed a job, she just reached out to her network. And a job was either given to her, offered to her, or created for her. A position was created. And I said, well, how do you put yourself in a position in which you're able to get that done for you? You're able to have a job created for you. And she said, upskilling. Upskilling, continually upskilling is a valuable tool to help you be in any position that you want to be in, right? Upskilling coupled with motivation. An interesting thing, I mean, a lot of people, we're talking about, like, there are no jobs and stuff. Oh, nice photo, that's right. That's cool. We're talking, my background, by the way, I'm a neuroscientist, so my background's in neuroscience, and I did a Master of Teaching and Education because I was passionate about teaching. I really enjoyed that. I actually quite like that photo because I think I was a science ambassador. There may be some science ambassadors in blue shirts here, and we were doing a photo shoot. And they said, oh, just go over there and pretend to be teaching this girl. And I was like, all right, cool. So I met her. And I looked at what she was studying, and she was actually utilizing the time. She was studying for an exam she had the next week. And I said, oh, okay, cool. And I looked at what she was studying. She was studying like neuroanatomy or anatomy or something. And I was like, oh, well, I could actually teach you that. So I ended up teaching her. And the people behind the camera were like, oh, that's great. Yeah, you're teaching really well. Well done. And they sent me the photos afterwards. And what was really cool was that they caught this moment of her sort of like getting a concept that for her exam next week, and it was sort of one of those reasons why I'm a teacher. So yes, sorry, tangential story, but back to networking and why you're here. The idea of one more story, by the way. You may notice I have an accent. I'm not sure if anyone's understood what I've said over the last 10 minutes, but if you haven't, my parents are Sri Lankan, and I was born and raised in Ireland. So that's why the accent's there. So if you've been wondering, that's that. But back to the idea of networking. I guess the last story I want to end on is this idea of that upskilling and networking and how to bring it all together. And I think a personal story, my sister, when she was going through her university degree, like I said, my dad was an academic and he's in electrical engineering. And so she went into year 12, got her HR, and she said, you know, Dad, I don't know what I want to do. And he said, oh, you don't know what you want to do? Do a degree in electrical engineering. She said, oh, okay, all right, fair enough. So she went, she did her degree in electrical engineering, and then she finished her degree, and she said, Dad, I've finished my degree, what should I do next? And he said, do you know what you want to do yet? She said, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do yet. He said, why don't you do a PhD in electrical engineering? She said, oh, okay, fair enough. So she finished her PhD in electrical engineering. And the key thing is, after those 8 years, those 8 years of electrical engineering, working in the research and in education. She's now the COO of a company called Women's in Banking and Finance. Nothing to do with her electrical engineering degree. And I was asking her, I said, how did you get that job? How are you working as a COO for Women's in Banking and Finance? And she said, well, over those 8 years of study, she worked on her skills. She continually upskilled, networked, and made connections with people, and as a result, that led to that opportunity. And she found that the skills that she implemented within her degree was helping her in that position. The skills of research, analytical skills, critical thinking, those are things that employers really want. Employers ask you, what is it that you can bring to the table? And every time my dad was saying, do a degree in electrical engineering, doing a PhD in electrical engineering, what he was really saying was, upskill. You don't know what you want to do? Upskill, right? Because those that are made redundant are those who don't continue to upskill and learn and grow. But with that being said, that's sort of the basic ideas I wanted to touch on today before getting into the panel discussion. So what we'll do to start off, if you have any questions at all that you'd like to touch on, put your hand up, I'll come to you. But we also have some questions we'll start the panelists off with. Before we get started, could I ask each of you for a minute just to introduce yourselves, say who you are, and we'll get stuck into the questions. So Meow, do you want to start off? You want to start off? Yeah, thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Meow. I'm UNSW alumni. Since I left, I started Australia's first open access molecular biology lab called Biofoundry, where members of the public can come and do science in general with us. Since then, I've founded and failed in Silicon Valley, which was pretty cool. Doing a biotech startup. I ran for the Science Party as the science spokesperson against Anthony Albanese, and currently I'm Transport New South Wales Most Wanted. So I've implanted an opal card in my head. If anyone wants to come along and play, I have like a fair few implants, and I just got back from Las Vegas speaking at the biggest hacker conference in the world.
I'm Ben Waterhouse. I don't know if the story is exciting as that, but I'm an alumnus as well of UNSW. I studied maths here as an undergrad, and then a few years later, after a stint in Sydney, I did a PhD here in maths. PhDs in maths are obviously very exciting. We put lots of dots in a very high-dimensional box in a well-distributed way, which makes me spend a few years doing that. For the last 10 years, I've run a business that does sort of big data analytics focused for pharmaceutical companies. If that makes any sense for everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Alan Taylor. I've been trying to think about what I am and who I am, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of background as to where I've come from, and that might fit a bit better. Because I just do a constant flow of things that I love. I did science because I love it, not because I was looking for a job in it necessarily. Undergrad, Sydney, honours at the Cunin Institute. Then I moved to a PhD at the Garden Institute, which some of you may know because it's actually linked to UNSW, so I'm sort of part of the alumni. But then halfway through I found that the stuff that I really wanted to do and focus on and loved was more the translation of science and not basic science. So and I realised a lot of that happened in companies. So I did a postgraduate degree in finance, had a fondness in mathematics as a scientist, and then I moved into investment banking, and I always apologise for that part. and Dave and I got to hang out a little bit in that sort of, when he was a corporate weasel, I think you described yourself as, and I was an investment banker. I think investment bank is just below a corporate weasel. And that was lots and lots of fun, and what the outcome was of being passionate about what I did. We actually did the largest medical device transactions ever in Australia, raising lots and lots of money for really cool things for heart pumps and bioresorbable stents and things like that. But they're all American companies, and you can tell from my accent, I'm a local. So I wanted to focus more on the translation of Australian science. So I left investment banking, hoping to have a year off, but I was monumentally unsuccessful at that. Shot out a few things came my way, and now I'm the chairman of Clarity Pharmaceuticals. I took on that role about 3.5 years ago. It was typical startup, one guy, ran out of money, good technology out of Amsterdam, the University of Melbourne. David also called copper just a commodity. I think copper's really special. We use copper 64 for imaging, copper 67 for therapy. So so I got a special here. And so now we're in clinical trials, and it's coming up really good results. Science is science, you don't know what's going to happen. We start our first neuroblastoma trial in about a month's time in kids' cancer, if you know that. Also the chair of another company called Wizard, which is a technology company. Once again, it came to me as a problem, and I like that problem-driven opportunities. And I brought together a bunch of people who we think we can deliver a product on that. We already have, so it's kind of exciting in the shipping and freight forwarding side of things. So that's me. Sorry.
No, that's right.
Hey everyone, my name is Adrienne Harrison-Gatt. I studied ecology and marine science here a few years back, quite a few years back. My background, I really liked marine invertebrates, specifically in the ecology surrounding that. So I've worked at Office of Water in their aquatic ecology team. I volunteered for a year at the Australian Museum, so I've got a particular fondness for collection management. And I've been working at Sydney Water for 7 years in the aquatic ecology team. And again, collection management, environmental monitoring. We pretty much operate like a consultancy as well, so we do environmental monitoring for councils and other organisations. That's me.
Hey everyone, my name is Solange. Kind of alumni / dropout, I guess. UNSW no longer allows me to log into anything, so I think they've just cancelled me. But I studied Aero Eng and Maths here, seems to be a rolling theme with Maths. Dropped out once we got accepted into Telstra's Startup Accelerator at the start of last year. So we founded Cuberider, which sends high school student experiments to the International Space Station, geared with a full-blown education program to get them through that journey. Last year we launched Australia's first ever space mission to the International Space Station. We had to find the hoops to jump through because no one had ever done it before, which was exciting for a two-man team at that point. And next week, in 4 days, we've got the next one going up. So, yeah.
Hi everybody, my name is Sally-Ann Williams. I'm on the engineering team at Google Australia. I've actually been there for 11 years, so I'm kind of like a dinosaur at Google these days. When I started, I was employed number 68 in Sydney, and we had 11 engineers, and now we're about 1,300 full-time employees, and half of that is engineering. So we are doing R&D in Australia. We're building global products from the team in Sydney on a whole bunch of different product areas. The space I work in is a little bit different. I work in a research space working with universities around computer science related disciplines and things that we're interested in, and kind of pushing forward disciplinary expertise and disciplinary knowledge. Both the academic sort of areas benefits, but also for our benefits. So it's not around the commercialization of research, and it's part of our long-term strategy for keeping ourselves engaged with what's happening in academia, but also being at the forefront of where the future is headed in spaces. I also work on a lot of experimental stuff inside of Google, which I can't talk to you about, but that's actually really cool. We kind of operate like a startup inside of the organisation, and so I work with teams who come up with an idea that they want to pitch to our executives and get them pitch ready, because we need to pitch for resources and funds. My formal external qualification day job thing that people know me for, though, is more around, I look after our university research that I manage, as I said. I haven't had coffee today, you can tell. I also look after our K-12 computer science and STEM education, so I've been really heavily involved in actually getting a new curriculum in Australia that will teach computational thinking and computer science from kindergarten, which is happening from this year, except in New South Wales, but New South Wales is coming. And I also work on tech startups and growing the tech startup ecosystem. So I sit on the board of a bunch of different organisations helping do that. I'm on the board of Fishburgers down the road in Ultimo, and help grow Australian businesses and take them global. And I do a little bit of investing on the side because I seem to don't like sleep.
Cool, thank you very much, panel members. Guys, I want you to really take in what's been said in terms of their backgrounds, their stories. Have a think, is there anything there that you'd like to question, like to understand how they got to where they are now, or anything that's been important to them? But the first question, formal question that I'll start off with is, on the screen up here, there's an assumption that the only true science career pathways are research and teaching. Many of our students have expressed a desire to pursue a science career, but don't want to be a researcher or a teacher. What other careers can students consider that still allows them to stay involved in science? I get one or two panel members there.
So I'm a big fan of Elon Musk and Joichi Ito. Joey runs MIT Media Lab, and he doesn't have a formal degree, but he's in charge of an entire university or a school. These people both encourage you to become a generalist. So I think having a degree in science is really important to have a core skill, but as you were saying before, upskilling away from that is fantastic. Like most of the people I know who are working in biology are computer science engineers, working in bioinformatics. But you still need an understanding of that. But if you have more skills that you can build. It doesn't matter what they are. And even better than that is projects underneath your belt. So go to hackathons, meet people outside your discipline. At the moment, I just founded a fintech biotech startup crossover. And it just came by going to the pub and meeting with a guy who's in fintech, dreaming about how we could combine these things and then come up with cool ways of doing it. If you wanted to do something now, I would really look at blockchain stuff. Blockchain is this amazing solution you can apply to so many problems. And if you can download the Solidity block, the Ethereum blockchain, you can start teaching yourself. All the information's there. For a couple of hours a week, you can guarantee to have a job before you even finish.
Excellent. I'd be interested to know, has anyone else on the panel experienced what Meow's saying in the sense of having a skill and having it translate to another field where it's worked effectively?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest spaces, one of the biggest areas for people to go into that have a science background or an engineering background or a maths background is go into policy. Now, that is actually asking you to beat your head against a wall repeatedly, but we need people with scientific literacy and the skills that you have to actually help people make informed decisions, right? We need people actually out there doing evaluations of programs. The amount of people that go into classrooms and say, I'm going to run an educational initiative to teach teachers or kids this certain thing, and then they have no robust evaluation frameworks. So the skills that you're building in every science, in the broadest sort of STEM degrees possible, they are applicable in every area, and they're applicable in business. You know, if you're sitting there going, how am I going to make an investment decision about whether I'm going to put my money on this product or this product development within my company, I'm going to use the same evaluation frameworks, and I'm going to use that same logical reasoning and deduction and questioning that you're doing right now in your degrees in that process. These are transferable skills. And I would just say that the way that I would rephrase what jobs are there for me, I'd say, what do you want to solve? If you think about the problem space that you want to work on and solve, then go find a job in that, because it doesn't matter what the job title is and what the role is. If you're working in something that you're interested in, you're going to have a career for a much longer term. So I don't think about it about job titles, but career and solving problems versus what degree do I have. It's what problem do I want to help solve in the world.
That's excellent.
I think most people, when they think about jobs and careers, they confuse two things. The first is skills, and the second one is knowledge. The word skills has been mentioned at least 20 times in this panel. It's only been going for 3 minutes. No one has mentioned the word knowledge once. But if you look at the way a university works, and if you think about all the jobs that you've heard of, most of them are connected to knowledge. So university courses are all structured around knowledge. You know, you do the body of knowledge of law, or body of knowledge of medicine, or body of knowledge of electrical engineering, or physics or chemistry, or whatever it is. Whereas really, underneath it all, it's actually a similar set of skills that you develop in all of them. They're all problem-solving skills, and analytical skills, and skills of argument, and skills of deduction, and reason, and all that sort of thing. And there are some jobs which, you know, where you need the body of knowledge. Like you can't practice medicine unless you study medicine. And you know, you can't become a baker unless you understand how flour and bread works and things. But most jobs out there are actually completely disconnected from a body of knowledge and actually completely rely on a set of skills. And so they don't have a sort of clear line between course and job. But 99% of them are just this sort of fuzzy line out there. But they all depend on the skills, not the knowledge. So don't worry about where you get the skills, worry about the knowledge.
It's a very good point, because I think everyone in this room is limited by what opportunities are out there based on your understanding of what careers are out there. But what I think the panel is touching on is don't focus so much on a career, but what are the skills, what are the problem-based problems that you want to solve, and I think that's important going forward. In saying that, the next question that we have is, with ongoing funding cuts for research and job losses in public sector research institutions in Australia, do you think that a science research career is still a viable option for our science graduates? Thoughts?
Yes.
Yes. I reckon no.
See, I would say, why limit yourself to public sector, right? If you're a software engineer right now, don't ever. This is being recorded, isn't it? Damn it. Okay, I'm going to rephrase this really well. I'm reading between the lines. If you're a software engineer right now, where would you want to do really high computing or HCI or anything research? Inside of a university or inside of a research unit at somewhere like Google or Microsoft or Facebook? Because if you look at some of the access to resources that we have right now and the pace at which we do things, and we still publish and we still get involved and participate in a really big way in academic conferences, That's why we get a lot of researchers coming to work with us. So I think it is dependent on your science, and you may not be able to do it in Australia, but I do think that if you think outside the box, there are absolutely research careers out there, and they can be really fun.
Yeah, can I come to, and it's touching a little bit on yours, but just using slightly different wording. There's a real difference between form versus function. And we're very structured in a university environment. You do this degree, you build to there, you do here. Everything that I do is actually done in really small teams of really competent people with a specific skill, and usually bringing that together. And very similar, I guess, at Google. You know, it's very small teams of people who are incredibly competent. So trying to find that skill and working in that environment, it works a lot faster, and you get results a lot quicker than the typical university environment where you have to publish and do those sorts of things. So I found that very debilitating, that public sector side of it. Even though Clarity collaborates with University of Melbourne, the Peter Mac, UQ, and a whole bunch of others, we just put scientists in and work on specific things. Publications are important, yes, sometimes for the researcher, but we're not bogged down by it. We need data, we need to show if things work really quickly and efficiently. And in Australia, unfortunately, we're still learning that blending of public and private, and but there are a lot more collaboration-based funding to do that. So, you know, I think we've done scientists a real disservice in Australia where we've actually said, well, if you want to be a professor, you have to do this science career, but there's no jobs. Well, there's very limited jobs of being a professor.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean there's not scientific jobs or the use of science outside of that basic environment, because there's lots of them, because science is just understanding the world around us. And yeah, I wouldn't be described as a scientist today, but I do science every single day. I'm not at the bench top because I'm too hyperactive and talk too much, but we do science every single day. We use scientific principles because they work.
But just on top of that as well, there's there's a reality of the statistics in so I think when I last looked at this, graduate employment for UNSW students in bio, which is my space, after 3 months was 52%. And the biggest employer of those people was retail. But it doesn't mean there's not jobs out there, but they're probably not going to be in your degree, and you can make a job for yourself. When I go to San Francisco, every person in biotech has had a job. They've all gone through Monsanto, they've all, Monsanto's like the McDonald's of biotech employers over there. Everyone goes through and gets their skills up. But there's fantastic initiatives. If you're motivated, there's money out there. Like as I was saying, there's public-private sector crossovers. Government will give you grants to link up business and universities. If you can come up with a cool idea like, I want to make a Pokemon, and you can convince Garvin and Dog Breeder Association or something like that to do it, you can get like $75,000 to $100,000. There are grants out there, MVP grant. You come up with a cool idea, you get your friends and family to give you $25,000, the government will give you $25,000. You're employed for 1 year. And off the back of that, you can be that 52% of people that do get employed.
On a small scale level, in university, the CSE put a proposition to get a robotic couch up and running. People were like, oh, what's that for? They're like, oh, I don't know, we just want to drive around a robotic couch. It sounded cool enough. They put the money in. It's been a massive marketing campaign for the university. So the money is there in the projects that we have. Adrienne?
Yeah, just quickly. So I work for Sydney Water, and it's a rare occurrence where you have a state-owned corporation. So you have government and private. So there's a lot of different drivers coming together with that. So as a business, like particularly for the labs and then all the engineering side with treatment, there is a need for R&D. We do have an R&D department, and the push is to do things differently and more effectively and more cost effectively. So there's a huge push, even within just our lab team, to innovate. So that's really positive, and that's like a strong corporate push for us at the moment. So that's helpful for the state-owned corporation space within the industry.
That's good. Innovation is definitely a driving force. So was there?
Can I just say, in the chemistry mentoring program that I run, by choice, less than 20% of the graduates choose to go into lab careers. As many go into finance and management consulting careers straight out of university, and that's people who are trained specifically in chemistry. So, cool.
So,
hopefully that opens your eyes into what you realize there. The next question that we're going to move on to is, look, it's a subjective question, and it's good to hear different sides, different opinions. And with all this, remember, this is all advice, right? Advice isn't gospel. Advice is something that's personalized, right? So think about which advice fits best for you. But for all the panelists, how do you decide on a career path? What advice do you think would be the best to give to students here today? I'd actually be interested in this question to hear from everyone. So if anyone wants to start us off, what advice do you have for the students today?
Go down the line?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I would say my 2 pieces of advice is I still haven't decided on my career path. Right? So I think don't decide on one is actually a really good piece of advice in my situation. It's been being really open, you mentioned networking before, but being really open to conversations with people, and when they've said, hey, how about this, I think you'd be great for it, me saying yes to some really crazy opportunities that's led me to where I am, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly going to be the next step for me when I move on and go on to my next thing. It's going to be that yes to something crazy. So don't get wedded down into something so tight that you don't even see the other possibilities around you. When somebody says something outside the box, consider it, and if it sparks a little bit of an interest, give it a go. Like, what have you got to lose? You can always quit. So I kind of think we get too really wedded to career is for life, and you just don't, it's a journey. You're going to have so many different careers and so many different opportunities. Don't make it the be all and end all, because I did. And Google didn't exist when I finished school, so no one could have told me I would be doing what I was doing now, right? So the job that I'm going to have in the future probably doesn't exist yet right now either. So just be open to things.
Yeah, I had a bit of a different experience in that I was always going to study what I studied from like the age of 5, and I was always going to work for NASA. And there was no other option. There was no plan B. That's just how it was. And then by the time I came into uni, uni wasn't really fulfilling enough for me, and I started doing different internships at different companies, and worked for free for way too long. Which you do if you're passionate about something, it doesn't really matter. You're willing to just give everything to it. And then I ended up doing something that I never, ever, ever thought I would ever do. Like, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. I never thought that I'd be running a business. I do next to no engineering now because I've got an engineering team that does it all, and I thought I was going to spend my whole life doing engineering and making spaceships. And I don't do any of that, but what I've landed in is way more fulfilling. But I'd probably, my piece of advice would be to have a goal that's that's stretching you. Like that's, you're going to have to work pretty hard to get there. So for me, that was NASA. Didn't know how I was going to cross the citizenship issues, but but something that was going to be genuinely difficult. And if you don't quite get there, or some other opportunity comes along the way, it's probably going to be pretty good. If you're aiming way up here and you get something here, it's still going to be pretty amazing, as opposed to if you kind of just go all in around and waiting for something to fall in your lap. So I always think you should be striving for something that you care about, but always be striving. Don't just be meandering around, kind of waiting for something to fall in your lap. As an employer now, I look for people who, like, most of the people I employ come to me, but I'm not even offering a job, because I love that attitude of, they're just hungry for opportunity, and they're going to make the opportunity come to them, as opposed to like, when's this next thing going to happen? Like, if you're still at university, you should still be out there and going through your favourite companies that are applying. If you start applying once you finish university, you're doing it wrong. Go out there, start working one day a week, work after hours, it doesn't matter, put yourself out there. And then it doesn't matter what you end up doing, it's going to be something way better than if you just wait for something to fall in your lap.
I was always passionate about science, and particularly biology. Not so much, like I didn't study biology at high school, I was focused on chemistry. And starting my university degree, I realised that high school chemistry and uni chemistry is pretty different. And you had to really focus when I wasn't focused in my early degree. But yeah, from that, I kind of got more of a feel for ecology, and that's something that I'm particularly passionate about. So when I finished honours, I spent a year volunteering 1 day a week at the Australian Museum in their marine invertebrates research section. So that was really cool. I got so many skills from that. That's not just like, it is a very specific thing, but it is transferable, which is kind of the theme. Then I actually, worked with 2 different government organisations within ecology, which was fantastic. But it wasn't stimulating me greatly. It was pretty limited what you could actually do with that within my role. So I started volunteering with the State Emergency Service. So I went into learning and development within that space, and I've been managing the learning and development at my local unit for 5 years. So I've picked up heaps of skills from that. Like obviously the learning and development stuff, so delivering content has been really useful for me because I'm generally a pretty terrible public speaker. So put myself out of my comfort zone and, got a feel for talking in public and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, skills are quite different but apply because we do a lot of teaching within our team. And yeah, at the moment I'm trying to work out what I want to do after this, and I've had my eyes open to computer science and bioinformatics, and just been so excited and overwhelmed, and work out what I want to do with that.
So sometimes I like to take a step back and just take it in a bit. We're sort of giving advice to a group of people who are already extraordinary. You're at one of the top universities and the smartest people, and you're so driven, you're coming to a careers day. So I'm going to tell you, you're going to be okay. It's all going to be okay. On a probability basis, you're winning, okay? So on that, I'm going to share with you a slightly similar, because I'm picking up on, I think we all have a similar sort of thing. So I only did things that I loved. I loved science, and I went into science. I wanted to focus on a particular area. I went and did it. I never had a job. It'd kill me to work 9 to 5. Because I'm not that sort of person, and it's like every step was a stepping stone to get to the next thing, which I really loved, and each component of it. I spent time trying to learn the skills and become better at it. It's so much easier when you love it. If you hate it, you're probably not going to become really, really good at it. And I found that when I was passionate about things, I was enthusiastic, and investment banking isn't when I say 9 to 5, it's more 5 to 9. And it's not 5 in the morning to 9 in the morning, it's 5 in the morning to 9 at night. It's very intense, but I loved it. It's like a sport, It was you work so hard, you play so hard with really small teams of people to deliver outcomes which were measurable, and that was a constant reward, like playing a football game, So I found that really stimulating. It's not for everybody. Actually, it's probably next to nobody. But it was really fun for me. Finding your thing, I think, is really critical, and it doesn't have to be really important point of it. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. It can be for the next couple of years as a stepping stone into the next thing.
There's a famous American oil baron, John Paul Getty, and he's asked to describe 3 things that were sort of key in life for success, or some nebulous concept. And he said, point 1 was rise early, second point was work hard, his third point was strike oil. And I actually think it's a really helpful thing to remember that you can make all the plans and that's everything you like, but ultimately you've got to be lucky, you've got to something just walks up from time to time, and you just got to make the most of those opportunities. It's not about, necessarily having plans, because the best laid plans go out the window pretty quickly. And just reflecting on my life, I had no idea what I wanted to do in my final year of, not doing my year of science. I went to the bar on a Thursday night. I was on my way to the uni bar to have a couple of drinks with a mate, and I saw another mate of mine who was wearing a nicer shirt, and I said, "Where are you going?" And he said there was a management consulting presentation night. He said there's free beer, and so I went along to that. And I stayed there till about midnight with a bunch of the guys there having a chat, and a week later, I scored a job there, and that was completely unplanned. That's how the first 3 years went. And I was sort of sick of that after 3 years, and I bumped into the old head of maths from UNSW at a restaurant in Melbourne, just completely by accident, and by the end of that, you convinced me to go and do a PhD in maths here. And so I came back and did a PhD, and I was working as a postdoc in the maths department here. And a mate of mine who worked for Sanofi, a big French pharmaceutical company, he said they had a problem doing some modelling of a diabetes drug, and could I give him a hand with it? I said, yeah, sure. And then that was a bit over 10 years ago now, and so randomly I run a pharmaceutical analytics business now, and it's one of those things. None of those things were particularly planned. Not particularly, they weren't planned in any way, shape, or form. But just things turn up, and you just got to bounce when they turn up.
On that note, I think that luck is definitely something that you can cultivate. So the biggest business I ran, which was at Indie Bio in San Francisco, my mate was having a bad day, and I said, why don't you do a biotech startup? This is how you do it. And his application beat my application. So I ended up going over and being acting CEO of that company for 6 weeks. But then, for half an hour sitting down on a couch with a friend who had a bad day, we got given $250,000 US. So I think one of the big things when I was on the other side a few years ago, I wasn't a great student. I had a terrible average. If you come up to me afterwards, I'll tell you what it was. But I was 7.5 years in undergrad and couldn't find my way. I wasn't a top student. I snuck my way into honours. But out of that, I ended up creating my own laboratory. And I was thinking, how do I differentiate myself from every other graduate? What projects do I have underneath my belt? By the time I graduated, though, I had a lab that's as good as some of the academics here. I know that because I took it out of the dumpster, took it home, fixed up the equipment, and built it. But meetup.com, if you go on there, you can find groups of people. If you're doing R, go and meet a whole bunch of R programs. There's a meetup once a month. There's Python, there's a MedTech thing. If you go to there, you're going to be able to network and drink with people who are in this field. You're going to find other people that are in the same space you are now. And those people that are in the same space you are now, people looking to graduate, thinking about where they're going, in 5 years, they're going to be your biggest advocates. One of you will start a company and they're going to say, hey, I've known you for 5 years, we met at that thing, I know what skills you have, come and join. You might join for equity and very, very low pay, but that might translate into something huge 10 years down the track. If you take enough equity in enough businesses and help out where you can and just work hard, you'll do okay. At least I hope, because I'm still there.
I think
that's something. Because we're saying the word luck a lot, and I've actually had a long think about this for a lot of years, especially going into finance. And the way I describe luck, it's probability taken personally. So there's a probability of success. And when you first start out, say in startup world, because everyone goes, why do you do startups? Because there's a 95% plus chance of failure. Why would you do it? Because you can.
VC funded startup.
Sorry?
That's just a VC funded startup.
Not necessarily. Well, not necessarily. VCs are a little bit later. I'm talking about just getting it going. So when you're thinking about probability itself, probability changes over time. Okay. So before you start your university degree, you have this probability of success. When you finish it, you got this probability of success. It doesn't mean you're going to be successful. You can have an 80% chance of success. If anyone plays poker, you can have aces over kings. You will win 82% of the time. It doesn't mean you're going to win every time. So that concept of luck is more of just a probability basis. Sometimes it just ends up negative. It doesn't mean the game's completely over. Hopefully you get to play the next hand, the next hand, and the next hand, and it can change over time. I'm just got this thing about.
It's an important point, and it's an important point to talk about. I think there's this famous quote on luck. Luck is just simply where preparation meets opportunity, right? So it's something to think about, and I think you're talking about more on the side of that personalized probability, which is interesting because there are different perspectives of seeing the same concept. And I think what's interesting is you look at people on this panel, right? Experienced members of society, right? In their professions. Some have been in their professions for 10 years, but if you think of where they were just before their professions, something that's similar, a similarity that I probably see with a lot of my students, a lot of students at UNSW, and them is that if you would ask them 6 months ago where they'd be, they probably would have said they didn't know. If you ask them where they're going to be in 6 years' time, they're probably not going to know. I'd be interested to know where they are going to be in 6 years. Maybe some of them know, maybe some of them don't. But it's that idea of preparing yourself for those opportunities, which is really, really important. Awesome. So look, I wanted to finish up the formal conversation there with the panel discussion. I want to make sure to hear from you so that you get a chance to speak with them. There's Slido up there. So the first question, top question is a PhD useful or necessary to be competitive or be professional outside of academia? thoughts on whether a PhD is useful outside of academia, the realm of this world?
I'm going to say useful, but not necessary.
Do it if it's a long slog, so do it if you're passionate about it. Don't do it because you're going to get a job from it, right? It's a long slog. That's a lot of words to write about essentially one thing. A lot of words to write. And so you want to be passionate or you're not going to enjoy the experience, right? And that's going to translate into something that employers will see in you that you're miserable when you're graduating with your PhD. So do it if you're passionate. It's not going to hold you back if you don't have one. And if you've got one, you know, that's nice. That's great. We love that.
I think the important thing with that is, and it's something I've seen with a couple of the scientists that have come through Cuberider, is a PhD doesn't translate to work experience.
Absolutely.
And so when you finish your PhD, if you have no work experience, you're basically a grad. And to take that into consideration.
Just a more knowledgeable one.
Yeah, so what I would...
In that area, only.
Yeah. One of the pieces of advice I was given when I was still had my heart set on working for instead of with NASA, I was definitely going to have to get a PhD to do that. And one of the best pieces of advice was don't go straight from your undergrad to a PhD, get some work experience before then so that when you finish your PhD, you're not just a grad. I thought that I didn't end up having anything to use it, but that's I thought was very good advice.
Excellent. Sorry, was there something?
Yeah, look, obviously I was a recruitment consultant, and one of the things I would say is, PhD or not depends on the market you're talking about. If you're talking about the US, PhD could be a real advantage, as you were just saying for NASA, right? The US is a very hierarchical society, and PhD means status. Here in Australia, PhD can be a negative. When I was working in recruitment, 50% of employers would say to me, do not send me a PhD candidate, right? So given what you were saying a moment ago about do it if you're passionate, by all means, do it if you're passionate. Do not do it if you think it's going to make you, just because you think it's going to make you more employable. And if you do it with a career in mind, build your network, prepare for the transition rather than just doing it and hoping that somebody's going to give you a job because of it.
Look, we've got a good number of questions up here, so I'm going to try and rapid fire on these. Yes, take it away.
Someone's got to support PhD.
Yeah.
You know, so look, if you're looking for a job, don't bother. You know, but if you're looking to be really, you know, if you're really bright in your field and you love your field, give it a crack. You know, it's fun. No, it's not. It differentiates you in your particular fields. You know, we have a board of Clarity. 3 of the board are PhDs. One of them's Chris Roberts, you know, former CEO of Cochlear, and Matt Harrison, managing director. He received the C.J. Martin scholarship. You know, these people are, you know, they're outstanding in their area. So if you're in a particular area, you love it, you can find a good supervisor is probably my greatest advice. I hate giving advice typically, but find a great supervisor who's going to spend some time nurturing your skills, because you don't want to be trapped in an office by yourself, depressed. And if you're great, because, you know, jobs are great, you know, and if you want to get a job, that's terrific. But if you really want to do something that's really important, spend a lot of time on it, and maybe solve a significant problem that society faces at the moment, a PhD will give you that opportunity in a scientific environment. You learn some skills, including failure, and how to deal with it and those sorts of things. And it's great. When you get it done, there's nothing that you're going to face in the future that's going to be harder than getting that completed. So that's a skill in itself. Halfway through my PhD, I don't think I've ever been so down and out, and I'm an incredibly positive person, and down and out, depressed, no data, no nothing. That in itself is a skill, being faced with all of that, powering on and closing it and completing it. And you know, the motto in Clarity, people will tell you, you know, my key one, ABC, always be closing. Always finish things off. Always get in there, give it 100% and close it out and generate good data and make it work.
Excellent. It's funny, when you look at the divide between whether a PhD is valuable, the advice has come from different contexts, right? So really ask yourself, well, is it valuable for you and do you see the value in it? All right, let's try and rapid fire through these questions. Are the opportunities and funding for STEM research fields really better overseas?
Yes.
Thoughts? Yes?
If you care about this, next election, vote for Science Party. We want to double funding just for science in Australia. There aren't enough scientists in politics. Please, like, Andrea Long is your local representative. She's running in Kensington in the lower house. She set up New South Wales State Party. Get down, be a part of it. If you really care and you want to change it with your vote. We might not have gay marriage by the next election, but hopefully we will have double funding to science. But the only way we change it is by actually going out there and asking for it.
Any other thoughts on this? No? Alright, moving on. The next one is, how do you continually upskill? Upskilling has been a key theme in this panel discussion. How would you continually upskill? What's something you'd advise?
Get a hobby, don't be boring. Do something outside of you. Have a life. And by that I mean like you should be learning something. So I've just entered into the world, like the crypto world. Like I'm learning all this amazing stuff, but it's like obviously just a hobby kind of thing. You know, but at the other end of that, I'm gonna have all these awesome skills. That's upskilling.
Learn where you planted. I loved Adrienne's example of the fact that she's doing all of the learning and development in the local SES. You know, you are going to have opportunities. Consider every opportunity, even if it is a job that you're bored in, a learning opportunity, right? That's if you go through the world and wake up with the day like that, going, what can I learn today and what can I contribute, you will always upskill.
It's very true. I think a lot of students at UNSW specifically do tailor their degrees to the skills that they have, which I think is a very silly thing to do, because skills and passions are developing. So you can, as everyone's saying, you can develop these skills and passions. So continually focus on what the next skill is that you want to achieve. Next question.
Could I quickly just add one thing? There's, as undergrads, it's a really easy way to upskill. Go to hackathons. Even if you're not a computer person, don't think you have to take a laptop. In one weekend, you can learn an entire programming language. You can learn Arduino. You can meet other people that will splinter from there. You can learn even more things. And all it takes is you giving up a weekend, and you have a really good time.
And don't discount those soft skills that you might not realise that you're already upskilling yourself in.
Don't call them soft skills,
Yeah.
for starters. They're not. These are core skills,
They're more
right?
important than your hard
Communication, teamwork, collaboration, creative thinking, problem-solving skills. This is what employers are saying. If you go look at any of the studies, this is what they're saying they want. They're not soft, they're hard, they're in the sciences. You do that in your science degrees. I have a bugbear about this, they are not soft.
They're the more important ones.
Yeah, they are not soft. You can be as smart as a whip, but if you can't tell me and can't communicate to me your great idea, I'm never going to give you money for it, I'm never going to give you an opportunity, and I'm not going to give you time to have a coffee with me. So you've got to learn those skills, right? And you're learning them in your degrees. Don't call them soft, it's a bugbear, I hate it.
Very true, very true. And the next one is, do any of you have experience in science journalism? Oh, hey, here, over here. And what is your advice for a science student with little media experience considering this profession? Did you want to, if you put your hand up, go for it.
I just published my 40th article in Chemistry in Australia magazine with reprinting in Australasian Science. How did I get into it? I said, can I write? Yeah, give a read. That's the end of it. And don't be precious about your writing. When your editor says it needs to change for this reason, you say, good, you know more than me. I got better.
I got interviewed by a student that I lectured over at UTS, and he said, hey, what are you working on that's interesting? I've got a media assignment. And out of that, we ended up getting on national TV, and his marks were actually made by how many people saw his article. So Today Tonight had to put a credit to him on the video, so he did very well. But I think one of the big things is like, yeah, don't be scared of going out and doing it. I'm getting interviewed by UTS students next Sunday, and they just like find cool people and see what they're doing. Go to the labs around here. You know, there are stories waiting to be told in every single PhD lab on this campus. It doesn't take much for you to go out and publish on medium.com and let the whole world know what's happening.
I want to add one bit, if I can jump in really quickly. It depends on your audience of how you learn to communicate this, right? If you're scientists communicating to scientists, you're doing it in a bit of a silo, right? And in a language that they understand. If you're wanting to communicate your science to the real world, you need to get some creative writing experience, and you need to put yourself through some of the workshops. Go along to a Sydney Writers Festival, get involved in that side of things, scare the crap out of yourself with writing, because communicating science to the average Australian out there is a different skill set. And I think every single one of you should learn to do that, because what you're doing is valuable, and we want to raise the bar of scientific understanding and literacy in this country. And one of the ways we do it is by having people who can speak science and make it clear and understandable to people who are non-scientists. to bring them on the journey. So do that. If anybody wants to intern at Refraction Media, look them up. They're great. They're just down in Ultimo, and they'll tell you how to communicate science to the real world.
And I think there's something on Monday night, because we've got Science Week coming up, and there's something on Monday night at UTS, so there's journalists, science communicators as well as scientists, having a nice go well. But yeah, I'll tell you what, we're starting off from a low base, so we can't even sell vaccines to all the world at this point in time.
Yeah.
The greatest contribution outside of fresh running water to human longevity, we can't even sell that. So it's a really low base. And we find that the internet was meant to be a great thing where researchers share lots of smart things. It's actually become a thing where lots of people share lots of dumb things. So getting that out, there is a platform now. There's a broader platform, and the better that we can communicate science, great.
And start doing video, because video is the medium that actually changes people's perspectives who are not in the scientific community, right? If you can articulate what you want to say in a couple of sentences really clearly, so that mum and dad down the street who don't have that, or my parents who owned a fruit and veggie shop and they still don't know what I do for a job, if you can communicate it for them to understand, you're going to have a powerful message, and that's actually going to be something that's going to help you in whatever career you want to take. So start a blog, start a YouTube channel, it's free.
Start a Twitch channel. There's heaps of avenues that haven't been explored. I'm about to start the world's first biotech Twitch channel, where instead of gaming, I'm like hardcore with my competitors on the bench. But your main benefit as millennials is you have access to avenues of distribution that us older people don't have access to. I'm borderline millennial, 1 year in. Start a Snapchat channel. Access an audience that the rest of society don't think about.
Definitely. And, funnily enough, just back on that point of science communication, and sadly we live in a society where it's not always the best idea that's widely accepted is the ones that are best communicated and loudly spoken. So remember, if you can speak well and you can speak loudly and you have a really good idea, you have all the power there. The next question is, if a tertiary undergraduate degree no longer guarantees you a job in that area, what things can we do to be competitive in the science market?
Come to Biofoundry and get 100 hours of lab experience underneath your belt before you apply for a job. Everyone says, I need previous lab experience before I can get a job. I need an internship before I can get another one. I literally built a lab for university students to do this in, and we have next to no one come along. So you only have yourselves to blame. Because I'm doing science every day, and for a very, very low price, and no one turned away due to lack of funds, you can differentiate yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, take it away.
Just because with volunteering, I found very useful, particularly for me, not just from the skills that I learned from the networks I developed. I pretty much have the job now that I have because of that volunteering. And someone's like, oh, you're working on this project. I'm like, no, I don't know who they are. They say contact them. I did, and they're like, oh, I'm actually leaving. You should apply, and you should say this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
Okay. On the back of internships, I think I mentioned it earlier at the start, the value of an internship is you don't always see the value until later on. And just as a personal quick story, I did my undergraduate degree in science, then picked up a job as a science journalist, and so I didn't do honours. And then did a teaching degree, and I'm thinking of going back into a PhD. You need honours for a PhD. Luckily enough, I did a number of internships in my undergraduate degree, published papers, that's been honours equivalency. You don't always have to be able to see the bigger picture in order to be able to start working towards it, right? It's always about understanding, well, what are these skills? Even if you don't know where it'll pay off one day, and that's important.
On that note, my mate went to a hackathon, Health Hack, and he's an undergrad computer science engineer. Now he's doing a PhD in bioinformatics at Garvin. They said, don't worry about your degree, don't worry about masters. You are so good at what you do, we're just going to remove those barriers and put you in here because the work you do is so important. It's more important than sitting for 3 years in classes learning this you can learn on the job.
Cool. Excellent.
Just when it goes to getting jobs and things like that, always a personal connection is worth so much more than a well laid out CV and all that sort of thing. That everyone thinks that jobs come through 3 really nicely set A4 pages. That's I think it's completely opposite way around. When you employ someone, the big nagging fear that you have is this person's a lunatic or a psycho or antisocial, or one day you're going to be stuck on a long haul flight next to them, and you want to commit suicide by the time you and then if you can actually just talk to someone, have a cup of coffee with them, and they realise that you're actually a nice person and decent and fun to be around, then they're so much more likely to hire you. So
because I'm very much like that too, but it's very different between big companies and small companies. Big companies, you need to fit into a process. because they're seeing so many CVs. Small companies, it's very much a personal, especially if it's a small, tight team and the like, blending into that team, doing an internship. And I don't know how many people we've hired from Clarity now, probably 3 or 4 out of that basis. Come in, let's get to know each other as a group, see if you fit, see what the dynamic is, see if you can contribute, and then you become a necessary part of the team. But I'm guessing Google, the recruitment process is very different to Clarity and the like, because there's a lot of people going for those jobs, but certainly the smaller companies, trying to build that personal sort of interaction, that relationship is so key that actually we don't use recruiters or anything like that. We hire because someone knows someone, we're looking for somebody, and we try and find them. So
The best piece of advice I got as an undergrad was to volunteer on conferences. I was lucky enough to be involved in the first astrobiology conference that was held at UNSW. And those connections I made, like I gave away maybe around 100 hours, I'm still getting benefits from that, meeting these amazing people. And heaps of those people got offered research positions and jobs by just putting up a poster, just whatever they were working on, whatever they were interested in, presenting it there, going for lunch with all the people in the conference, and building their personal networks internationally.
I definitely agree with that. Is there an ideal stage during your degree to do an internship? No, just do it. Do it now. Legitimately, I did mine in the first year. It's harder when you're younger. I emailed 60 people, got rejected by 59, and then one person said yes, led to a paper publication. You can do it. What's the worst? I didn't rephrase this question. What are the best and worst things about the science industry? I'd love to hear. What do you think? What do you love most about your careers, or just the science industry? What's the best or worst things?
Snobbery.
Where's
Everyone's a
this?
snob for their own bubble within science. But once you're out in industry, you're all kind of we're all in the battlefield together. When you're at university, everyone's I don't know, in engineering, it's you do civil. It's actually, when you enter the workforce, you're all exactly the same. You're not exactly the same. This big perspective shift when you leave uni.
If I share something, it's the institutionalisation of it. I agree. When you're dealing in the real world, it's once again this form over function. I keep bringing up a whole bunch of different things. You have form here. At the end of the day, you've got to deliver it on game day out there in the real world. Don't care whether you're a civil or mechanical or chemical engineer or whatever. So,
But there's snobbery in all jobs, all industries, and negatives in all industries. So it's something to keep in mind. There's no perfect
I
answer.
actually say that academic institutions are geared towards creating elitism, and when you get an organisation where people rise according to how well they do their research and not based on personal values and things like this, you actually create an environment that allows psychopaths to rise to the top. And you'll see it at every university thing. Not all academics are like this, but 50% of academics are like this. And if you leave and go into industry, some of them will think that you are the biggest piece of garbage because you're sold out somehow.
Well, it goes back to the point of why you hire people who you know, right? So you're familiar with because of those psychopathic tendencies, right?
I just want us to, I'm conscious of time, but I really want us to answer the second question from the top.
Yeah, go for
I
it.
think that's a really important one for us to talk about.
Yeah, can I just share one point just on what we're on, just quickly? So there's a head, I'm not going to tell you which unit it is, a head of the pharmacology department, right, who got some intellectual property on a product and didn't know what to do next. All they had was a patent, didn't know how to translate it at all. This is pharmacology. Pharmacology is a very applied science where we're trying to treat people with particular drugs to make them better. And the head of the whole department, because they're not skilled in this particular area, they're academics, they only publish, didn't know how to bridge the gap between this early discovery in the real world, even at the first step. So it's time we sort of, and I'm very passionate about this, time we start to bridge this gap, because there's so much knowledge within academia in Australia, and we need to share these skills in which, okay, let's do a pilot study, do an animal study, we know everyone who does it, so it's about now getting rid of this institutionalisation from both sides, and sharing our knowledge and saying, right, let's do it together.
Just to finish this off, how accommodating are the private and public sectors of individuals with disabilities? Do any of you have experience with this?
So the reason I wanted to bring this up is that often when this question comes up, we're thinking about physical disabilities, but it also includes a whole host of other sort of challenges that people are living with every day. And so I think it's something that the private sector has become much more aware of and is trying to become better at it. I won't say everybody's nailing it, and I won't say they are in the public sector either, but I think it's something that we are hand on the heart and have put a stake in the ground saying that we want to have the most inclusive workplace possible, and we're not there yet. So one of the things that we do when we have an employee come in and there is a disability or something disclosed to us, be it whatever it is, we say, well, what do we do to help you be the best that you can possibly do? Because we clearly want to hire you, you want to work here, this is a fit, so what do we do? And then it is a negotiation of what does that look like, because it's different for everybody. There are a number of people that I work with that would fall into this category, and some of them you would visibly see that, because if they're blind, it's quite apparent that they're blind. And you know, people are accommodating of that, and there's certain physical things that you need to do around the office to accommodate those sorts of things. But there are a whole bunch of other people that fit into this category that you wouldn't normally necessarily know. And so creating a really safe place for those discussions and managers and a support network is really, really important. And if any of you are in that position, it's something, once you get a job, I think, to really work with and disclose with your manager and HR about what you have to disclose and what you don't have to disclose. You know, obviously there's legislation around that, but finding an employer that will be supportive of that, I think, is incredibly important. And if they're not, you know, you need to, I would strongly encourage you to stand up and call them out on things that they are legally required to provide for you, because we need to move the needle on this one. It's something I'm really personally passionate about. We haven't moved it far enough.
Could I just add to that? I think what you said was really important. I have mental illness, and get the job then disclosed. Like, it's not the way it should be, but like, if you don't have to disclose it, get the job, because it's a lot harder for them to fire you with a disability than it is to not employ you. Unfortunately, like, honestly, if you want a job, that's the way I do it. Cool.
Yeah, the very, very last thing.
Again, Sydney Water State Incorporation, their views on mental health have shifted, so they're catching up to, you know, I think the whole world is catching up to, you know, mental wellness is a huge issue, not only for the business, but obviously for individuals. So, like, in my team, we're a team of 10, and we've got 4 people on flexible work arrangements for various reasons, but they're really pushing this flexible work arrangement thing. So, if possible, working from home is an option, reduced work hours, flexibility, working in different geographic locations. So it's good to see that they're picking up with that and making work more accessible and more flexible